This is episode 2008 of the Vibrant Living series. I'm Kimberly Henrie, and this is Living the Good Life. How do you handle the unexpected stressors that come your way? If you want to learn to bounce back and harness the opportunities that come from tragic circumstances, or simply just live your best life even in the midst of the storm, today's guest has some great wisdom to share from his own experiences. As we'll discuss, it doesn't matter what area of your life is impacted. Your mindset can either make or break your situation. Plus, we have some laughs and just really great energy to share. Oh yeah, spoiler alert, our guest is a former Mr. America. All right, here we go. Our guest today is equal parts athlete, entrepreneur, and motivator. 5 years after pulling himself from the world of drug and alcohol-abusing outlaw bikers, his never-give-up attitude, determination, and willingness to sweat earned him a national bodybuilding championship title, aka Mr. America, and a successful 16-year career as a Fox Sports Net TV show host. He's a longtime martial arts practitioner and is trained with some of the top martial arts masters in the world. He was the recent recipient of the coveted AAU Athletic Legends Award, as well as the author of 2 #1 best-selling books, 7 Rules of Achievement and Why Smart Goals May Be Dumb. Can't wait to hear on that. His latest ebook guide, The 7-Step Comeback Plan, is a blueprint for combining strategy and action to find your silver lining. Welcome to the show, Tom Terwilliger.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just a joy here to be with you. I mean, you've got so much experience and so much knowledge. And evidently, we met several years ago, so it's great to reconnect, you might say.
This is like 13 years ago? Well, we're not that old, but yeah.
Well, I just turned 14, so you're not that old yet.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I think we talked about it like 13, 14 years ago in Colorado at a bodybuilding competition. And here we are reconnecting. So I wanted to let you know how much I appreciate your invitation and to be here with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. It's our pleasure. Super excited. There's so much that we could talk about that you've accomplished in your career and experiences you've had. I know we're not going to get to it all, but let's get rolling. Where in the world are you now, Tom Terwilliger, and what are you up to?
Really right now, again, for me in this stage of my life, I'm just turned 61, and I think it's safe to say at a time in most people's lives when they're starting to like settle down, relax, and maybe not take on too many more challenges, and even perhaps starting to get ready to retire, I feel just the opposite. I feel invigorated and renewed, and I'm always in the pursuit of something next. And whatever that next is generally involves in some way, shape, or form serving others. Every book that I've ever written, other than my bodybuilding career, it's always been really about how can I serve others? Not complete. Listen, I'm not going to step out there and say completely selfishly, because I'm a big believer that if you can do something, whether on a big scale or a small scale, something in between, to serve others and serve yourself at the same time, spiritually, financially, emotionally, whatever it is that you gain or have access to as a result of serving others, then more power to you. That's exactly what we should be doing. More people should be pursuing the service of others, having been rewarded themselves. So it's not completely selfless by any means. But so at my stage in my life right now, again, it's interesting because even with this pandemic, this disruption that we're in the middle of right now, the first thing that occurred to me was like, oh my God, our income's going to go away. Our business is going to suffer. Everything's going to be changed as a result of it. And we got into this fear mode, you might say, my wife and I. And then indeed, 90% of our income went away. And so we had to reprogram ourselves. We had to change and shift our thought pattern a little bit. And so I went right back to how can we serve? There are other people that are going to be suffering and experiencing much more fear, doubt, and uncertainty than we are, by all means. So how can we serve them? What can we do? And that's when I started writing again and expanding upon something that I had already created that was more or less ready to be published. But publishing can take a year or 2 years sometimes, even when a book is completed and finished. So we approached our publisher and we had to really go to battle to get this thing in a condensed form, what we've just released in terms of the 7-step blueprint, to get it out there, to be able to get it out there immediately. So at this stage of my life, it's really all about service. It's like we don't need to do any of this, but we want to. And it keeps me alive. It keeps me invigorated. And I'm a big believer in anti-aging and the different steps and the different methodologies that you can use for that: exercise, nutrition, and mindset is certainly the number one. And if you've got a reason to live, if you've got an empowering cause and a compelling future, you'll continue to stay young, healthy, and energized as you move forward. So part of that, again, is that selfish goal to stay young, healthy, and vibrant as I move forward. And the way I know to do that is to have the mindset of service to others. So that's kind of where I'm at.
What we're really breaking this down to is we're all narcissists. And
well, it is interesting because there are a few of us. Mother Teresa, maybe she had some other motive. Right? And that motive perhaps was to serve God as well as serving people and earn her place in heaven. There's very few things that we do in the life for others that don't come back to us in some way, in form of a reward in some way, shape, or form. We'd like to think that it doesn't, but it does in some way, right?
Right. I think it's better to accept that and acknowledge it.
Yes.
Than to try and fool yourself.
Yeah.
We've been having this conversation a lot lately in my circles that it's okay. It's give yourself permission to benefit from serving others.
Yes.
Because that's how we're all going to continue to be able to thrive and serve and grow. And
absolutely.
And benefit either.
Yes. If there were no reward, if there was nothing, I mean, whether it's financially or reach or influence in some way, shape, or form, you can only do it for so long. You can only serve for so long. Even Mother Teresa, if we go back to that, what perceptually is like a completely selfless act, needed financing, needed help. And she had to be able to reach out and do those things. At some point in her life and life of service, she had to bring in other people. And so for us as entrepreneurs or creators or writers, housewives, husbands, whatever it might be, we need to be able to find those resources as well. And by the way, the 7-Step Comeback Plan is free. I wanted people to have this book. I'm not trying to make a profit on this book. There's always a back end. If I can serve further, if I can serve more, if you like what you read and it is of service and you're putting it into action, there's always more. And there's more that I will be compensated for. And as a result, provide even greater possibility for other people to make changes. So yes, narcissism, maybe.
I'll try to remember that you're serving me the next time I do my 100 squats in 15
Oh, yes. You're part of the tribe, the Max Mind Lean Body tribe. And that is, we're always putting out those 100 squats. Don't they get you?
Oh, man. That day 3 was something else.
Yeah.
But we're back around. We're back around to normal. It's all good.
That's what really makes it a challenge. It's like, okay, I can do it one day. I can do it. Now it's the next day and the next day. And it's really what it's doing. It's retraining ourselves to do things that we think we can't do. Because on the surface, I think most people, the average person, 100 squats, even with no weight, just your body weight. Yeah. 100 squats. I can't do 100 squats. This is our reaction. I can't do 100 squats. You know, I'll barely get 10. Well, guess what? You find out that you can do it. Yeah. And then you find out that you can do it another day and another day and another day. Yes, it'll be challenging by day 20. By day 3, we know it's challenging.
What?
But you begin to create a new belief system about yourself and what you're capable of. Yeah. And a lot of times I'm asked, well, how do I change my belief? How do I change a belief I have? And there's several different ways to do that. And one of them is what I call the do then believe model. If there's something you believe you can't do, and then you do it for whatever the reason, whatever compelling reason, you take it on or you're forced to do it or challenged to do it in some way, shape, or form, and you do it. Now you've reshaped an entirely new belief that you can do and you're more capable. And that spins over to other things in your life, you know, that I didn't think I could do that either. Maybe I can write a book. Maybe I can do a podcast. Maybe I can start my own blog, you know, and we reshape those beliefs as a result.
Let's talk a little bit about the 7-step comeback plan, the blueprint. Sure. What is in there? What can we find?
Well, really, you know, I like to talk about it as a blueprint or a sort of a template, you might say, because it'd be impossible. And I wanted to serve as many people as possible with this. And so I didn't want to say, okay, here's a 7-step comeback plan for marketers or a 7-step comeback plan for those who want to lose weight. It's like everybody's got a different reason, a different thing that they want to create in their life, a different vision, you might say, or a different vision that they want to even create. Maybe they don't have a vision yet. And so the big picture is the most important thing right now. In fact, I'm a big believer that based on neuroscience and my own personal experience, that when we're in the type of a mental, emotional state that most of us tend to be in, whether we like to believe it or not. There are varying degrees of this. We're all still in a little bit of doubt and uncertainty and a little anxiety and even fear for that matter. Much of the fear has subsided a little bit, but it's still holding on a little, in our lives. And so when we're in that type of state, that kind of heightened emotional alert state, you might say, it's very difficult. And I'm big on setting goals and objectives. That's what the 7 Rules of Achievement was all about. And I talk about, and this is what anyone who teaches goal setting strategies talks about, getting as specific as possible. You got to get into the granular component of the goal and really picture it. Get as clear. What are you wearing on the day you achieve it? What does your hair look like on the day you achieve it? Whatever it might be that creates as much detail, granular detail as possible, is important towards programming our unconscious mind and moving towards that objective and ultimately achieving it. But I think when we're in this type of state, the fear, doubt, and uncertainty state in our physiology and our mindset, it's difficult to get granular. It's really hard to kind of like with any congruence to say, here's what I'm going to achieve. I like to use the $2.5 million in the bank by September 1st. Very specific. It's a certain amount of money. You can even go less than that. $2.5 million and 3 cents in the bank, right?
Yeah. Have you ever written out a check to yourself for some date in the future?
I have done that, actually. Yeah. Yes. And again, that's part of that specific goal setting strategy, Yeah. But when we're in the state that we're in now, it's difficult to get that granular. It almost feels incongruent because there's so much uncertainty floating around in our unconscious mind. So in the 7-step comeback plan, one of the first steps, there's one step before this, but the second step is to get clear on the big picture. What's the big picture? Because right now it's just like, well, so many people just want to get back to their jobs and get back to life as normal as it was, But there are many people, and I'm thinking it's a large percentage, not the majority perhaps, but a large percentage of people who don't necessarily want life to go back as it was. They want something more. I don't know about you, but I've been sort of like alerted. It's almost like a red flag has been dropped on the course. And I'm like, wait a second. What I was doing before all this was good. And, I'm in that kind of like comfort zone. And some people would call it a rut. And you're just kind of coasting a little bit, But now we've been shook up. I like to say the cage has been rattled, you might say,
Yes.
And as a result of that, we're like, that wasn't all I want to write a book. I want to do a podcast. I want to become a designer. I want to be graphic. Whatever it might be, whatever the dream might be. I want to be a bodybuilder. I want to get on that stage for the first time and compete, Whatever it might be. It's just like, that was the dream before that got sort of like smoke screened by our everyday lives and all the things that we have to do on a daily basis. And now when that cage has been rattled, it's like, we want that. We want more. I want more than what was going on even before this, So to get a picture of what the big picture is really important for most people right now. So to be able to say, I like to use the example, a broad spectrum. By September 1st, I'm living in a beautiful home. I've got a great job with a steady income. I have someone I love and someone who loves me. I feel healthy in my body, fit and lean, even sexy. And you can stack anything you want on there to create this big picture. Any one of those things could be broken down into its granular form and made very detailed in terms of what we want to achieve. But those things are broader statements that create some kind of compelling future that helps us take our focus off all the negativity. And we both know, Kimberly, there's a lot of negativity going on out there, right?
There's a lot, and a lot of confusion. A lot of confusion
and negativity. And a part of the confusion is this a conspiracy? Is it, is it politically motivated? Is it for real? How real is it? How bad is it? Should I wear a mask? Should I not wear? All the stuff that is occupying our thought process forces us to focus in a certain direction. And that direction is pretty negative right now. So when we create the big picture, now we've given our minds, our unconscious and conscious mind, and our body something else to focus on in the other direction. A compelling future, not an uncertain, doubtful future, a compelling future.
How do you make that congruent with how you're feeling?
The very first step in the 7-step comeback plan, and this goes right to what I experienced personally, my wife and I. I mentioned earlier that we had all this doubt and uncertainty because all of a sudden our income's gone. We didn't know if this was going to destroy our business. Maybe we lose our homes, any number of things that could come. And all that stuff starts rolling around in your head as a result of all this, right? At first, the pandemic and all the stuff that was going on, it was like a distant threat. And then all of a sudden, it's in our faces, right? We're shut down to business. We can't go anywhere. We can't do anything. No gyms, nothing, right? And so it becomes very real. And for us, it became very real. And we got hit hardest financially. And as a result of that, we were focused almost exclusively on the fear, on the doubt, on the uncertainty, on all the negativity. And we were so focused on that, we were trying to figure out how to survive. We forgot that there's a possibility of even thriving here. There's opportunities as a result of this. So how you make that congruent is a decision. The first thing has to be a decision. So we made a decision because the decision was being made for us.
Right.
You'll be, think about survival. Just try and survive, man. We just got to get through this thing. That was kind of the decision everyone was making. We got to get through this thing. We got to get through this thing. So we made a different conscious decision. We made it a conscious decision that whether we lose our business, our home, and all our finances, doesn't matter. It will not. This is the away from the pain. It will not destroy us. It will not destroy us. That's number one. You got to believe that, and you got to embody it, that this will not, no matter what, it will not destroy us. And the second part is the towards, which is the objective you're moving towards. That was the moving. I'm not going to be moving in that direction, so I'm pushing away from it. The next thing is to move towards what you want. And we said we will thrive in this environment. It will not destroy us, and we will thrive. So as a result of those two things, we created a totally different mindset that made the big picture, which is the next step, getting an idea of what the big picture is for you. You make a decision, you commit to it with your body and your soul and your spirit and everything you can muster. And then you get a big picture idea of what you're moving towards. What exactly does thrive mean? Yeah. How do I define that? How do you define that for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we had to create that. And that's what creates congruence. Now, I will say this, one last thing. Well, on this particular note, this is where, and for us, by the way, let me give you this quick example of what I'm about to share, because so making that decision also took some reframing about what was happening. We had to reframe. We had to look at it from a different lens and from a different angle and a different perspective, right? So if you change all those things, you change the perspective, the angle, and the lens, you can change the meaning behind what this all is. And it doesn't matter what it is globally, and it doesn't matter what the truth is. Your personal truth is what matters at the moment in terms of how you perceive all this. So we looked at it just like, well, how are we going to thrive? And then it dawned on me that we've done all these years of personal development, leadership training, spirituality training, all these different things, my martial arts training over the years. And I like to use it like an example, like a young woman who's been training all her life in the martial arts and is a third-degree black belt, but has never really tested it. Sure, she got her black belt in a controlled environment. But now, all of a sudden, we're walking down a dark alley and we get jumped by 3 big-ass thugs, and we got to fight our way out.
Right.
And the end result of that, the reframe, was that this isn't going to destroy us, but rather this is going to make us exponentially stronger, more capable, smarter, wiser the next time. So we knew that this was the test that was going to do all those things. When we were kind of moving along, learning some new things, testing ourselves a little here and there, you know what I mean? I'll do a firewall, we'll do a trapeze thing, but really testing it in an environment that says, hey, you think you've got all these skills. Now let's put it to the test. Are you really congruent with this? So that was the reframe for us. And that reframe made all the difference in the world in terms of strengthening our will and changing our mindset towards moving. So the reason I bring that up is what we've got to realize as we move forward now is that if we're going to be prepared, because these things, I got a feeling this may be just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we may be facing, not necessarily with this particular pandemic, but as we move, life is going to be different and things are changing and these kind of things might happen more often. So if we're going to be able to take that stance that this will make us stronger, that, we're about to get smarter and do more than just survive it, but thrive in the environment, then it requires more than just sitting around on your couch watching, the next Netflix series and the next and the next and the next, eating Doritos. You can't. I hate to say this, folks, but you're making yourself weaker. You're making yourself more vulnerable. You're making yourself very compromised. Strengthening yourself, strengthening your will, strengthening your wisdom is something that has to be an ongoing life quest so that then you're prepared for when the shit might hit the fan. Instead of being like, oh, no, what am I going to do now? You have to be prepared. And that doesn't mean you have to stock away millions of dollars, guns or ammo or water. Those things may not be a bad idea for the future. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not necessarily that guy. But having yourself, your mind, and your body prepared that, hey, whatever comes, you really have to have a belief in yourself that whatever comes, I can face it. I can handle it. I can deal with it. I can thrive in it. But that takes some work along the way. It's an ongoing effort. It's hard to manifest that when you're in the trenches suddenly. It's difficult. It can be done. And I think the first step is to have a plan of some kind. And that's where the book comes in.
Awesome. when you're in the trenches
Yeah.
and you want to turn things around, but you haven't had all of the leadership training, the experiences that, say, you and your wife, Dawn, have had, do you have advice for somebody to even make a shift, to be open enough to open the book?
Yeah. Well, part of it is that keep in mind that any kind of, let's call it an emotional state, you know, and there's a lot of talk these days about emotional intelligence, right? And how we you can strengthen ourselves emotionally. And it's even more valuable than IQ for that matter. Smarts is less valuable than really true emotional intelligence. So one of the things that they can do while they're in the trenches is to stop, take that deep breath. Let's face it, fear, doubt, and uncertainty can quickly turn from anxiety into full-blown panic. So we have to be able to say, okay, stop, take a deep breath. Sometimes we need someone else to stand in front of us, literally, physically, take us by the shoulders, look us in the eye, stop, maybe have a slap in the face. But we have to, if we don't have that person to do that, we have to be able to do it ourselves. So the best advice I can give you is to say, okay, hold on. This is an emotion. I'm feeling this. Regulate it. Take a deep breath. It all begins with the breath. It almost always begins with the breath. Taking that breath instead of that shallow breath. Take several deep breaths, several more, until you start to come down, until you start to regulate, until you start to send a message through the vagus nerve, which runs from the gut to the brain, that regulates a lot of this, that you can settle that down and then think a little bit more logically instead of emotionally around whatever the issue might be in the trenches. Because you're not going to get out of that trench unscathed in that state. You're not.
Right.
Now, you may not get out of the trench unscathed anyway, but you've got a much greater chance of survival and thriving if you're able to settle down your emotions. And listen, I recommend start training it now because we may not be out of the trenches yet. We don't know.
And we may be dragged back down again and again, as you said earlier. I think you're right. I think life as we know it is going to take a different form, and that can be opportunity as well as those downhill slides.
Absolutely. The things I talk about is that it's very difficult to see the opportunities. When Dawn and I were in that initial stage of this thing, it's like, boom, 90% of our income. Done, gone for now, temporarily at least. We didn't know how long it was going to last. It's already lasted longer than we anticipated. But when you're in that state, it's like a smoke screen. You can't see the opportunities that are available. You're blinded. In fact, you'll begin to believe there aren't any. What opportunities? What freaking opportunities? There's no opportunities in this. We just got to get this thing alive if we can. No, there are a multitude of new and old opportunities available. But if you don't get out of that fear, that doubt, that uncertainty, that anxiety state, the cloud, the screen will never be lifted enough so that you can see what those opportunities are. As soon as we changed the mindset from the fear, doubt, and uncertainty, focused on the problem and focused on what the solution is and the decision around that, we will thrive. And all of a sudden, I kid you not, Kimberly, it was like literally like if you've ever been driving in a fog and all of a sudden it just like lifts. And now you can see the road clearly again ahead of you and all the beauty around you. That's what it was like. And I was like, holy shit, there's several opportunities here, so we can help our business thrive and we can help others along the way at the same time.
Yeah. I think a lot of people who experience grief or sudden loss have experienced what it is that you're speaking of. And I can speak for myself. I had a loss about 3 years ago. It was very impactful when you realize that life as you thought it was going to be is not. The picture you had painted for the future is poof, gone. Then you begin to see the opportunity. For me, that was my experience. You begin to understand, okay, I get to design this life. If I want these things to happen, I have to take action. And so I began looking for resources and tools to fill that need. And I think that's what you've developed here for somebody who is in that state.
Absolutely. And it's because it's so difficult when you're in that kind of state, grief, loss, fear, doubt, anxiety. When you're in those states, now, granted, if it's chronic, if it's something you experience on a daily basis, outside this pandemic, outside this disruption, it may be something that requires some additional seeking of help or guidance in some way, shape, or form. But at the same time, if it's something that's really triggered by these acute experiences, but you have challenges recognizing that your body is being usurped, you might say, your amygdala is being hijacked. And one of the best ways to do that is to get out of that, because most people don't know. It's like, what do? I didn't know what to do. So if you've got a guide, if you've got some kind of plan, that's why I said it's not specific to any one outcome. The 7-step comeback plan is a template that anyone can use to plug in their own specifics in terms of what their goals and objectives are. But the whole idea behind it was simply to get people unstuck, give them a guide. And by the way, in the book, the content is minimal. Minimal. I didn't spend a lot of time writing the content on this. I created context, right, around a particular step, you might say. But most of it is around exercises. Most of it is around questions that I want people to go through. And really, so if you just read the book, the 7-step comeback plan, you'll get something out of it. You'll have a better understanding of what's going on, probably with yourself and the environment. But if you don't go through the exercise, if you don't take those steps, if you don't spend the time, if you don't evaluate your own personal emotions, what's going on, and really honestly answer those questions, they're the ones that lead to the changing of the mindset. They're the ones that lead to the increase in emotional intelligence and an understanding of what you need to do next. And so that was the whole idea, was to get people from feeling stuck and to get them back into momentum, to get them back into, you called it, action.
Yes.
So this is the first step. Once you start this, it's interesting because if you go through the book or any really good strategic planning session, you might say, or strategy, very quickly, it changes your state. You start to recognize things. You start to do, especially when you're doing the exercises. All of a sudden, it's just like you're not feeling as stuck anymore. The clouds are starting to lift. The fog is starting to lift a little bit. And you're already in action. You know, I like to say that a warrior, I'm a longtime martial arts practitioner, so a warrior, a martial artist, a samurai in the heat of battle has no freaking time to worry about the outcome. The fear is gone. Once he stepped on that terrain, facing his enemy, when I was bodybuilding, even speaking in front of large audiences, there was always that fear. There was always that little gut thing going on, man, the butterfly. They're like, oh my God. I threw up a couple of times before getting on stage. She was so nervous. But once you get on stage, once you're in the battle, there's no more fear. There's no more doubt. There's no room for it, you might say. You're focused on the action. So even taking that first step, deciding what the decision is for you. What's the big picture, right? Where are you now in reference to where you are or where you want to be? This is the third step. You know, determine what resources you have, what resources you need is the next step. And then you got to think about those things. What resources do I have that will help me achieve what I want? What am I going to need in 6 months, 3 months, a year from now? And then developing some milestones and creating those milestones, by the way, is a way of increasing the internal image of what you want to achieve. So the big picture is one thing. But when you have the milestones, now it starts to become real. It's like, okay, in a month, this is my first milestone in getting there. And then my next milestone, right. You know? Right. So it starts to become real. You have to imagine it. You have to see it in your mind in order to create those milestones. And then the step beyond that is the internal representation, which is the real visualization around it. Much deeper than creating a vision. It's seeing it, it's feeling it, it's hearing it, it's even smelling that outcome. And then ultimately, it's about putting all those steps into action. So once you have that kind of plan, you're following it. You're in action already. You're creating an image already. You're in the
momentum.
fight.
Yeah.
That's right. You're creating momentum. You're in the battle. There's no more room. The fear, the doubt, the uncertainty starts to dissipate quickly.
Speaking of momentum, we're past the end of our time. We've done a great job. We've had so much fun, and I think that you could create a course out of this. Hopefully, you will.
Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully
we're working
you will.
on it. Yeah. Thank you.
How can folks get a hold of the guide?
Oh, the guide is easy. Go to the comeback plan. Don't even add the 7 steps, just thecomebackplan.com. Okay. And it's free. Download it. Enjoy it. It'll get you to a link, by the way. We did a live webinar that was done just a few days ago. That'll get you to the webinar. We answer even more questions there. We go in a little bit deeper, many of the aspects of the book. So that's part of it. And also what's interesting is, I've also on that webinar page, if you like, you can also, and this is for a very limited time. I'm not even sure how long it'll be up, but I'm doing 30-minute consultations, sort of just like chats. See where you're at. If I can help you, if I can, great, fantastic. I'll share with you what the next resources might be. If not, maybe we can come to some resolve. Maybe I can help you reframe whatever your greatest challenge is right now. But all you have to pick a time and date, and let's get on the phone and chat personally. I'd love that.
Perfect. Any other resources you want to let people know about before we?
Well, certainly, listen, it's going to be tough to keep up with Kimberly and some of the other tribe members. But if you're on Facebook, please join us, friend us on tribe.com. Max Mind Lean Body. That's Tribe Max Mind Lean Body. You can join Kimberly on our latest challenge. It's only a week into it.
One of these days, I might actually put up a video or something.
Please, you have to.
Don't count on it.
I'm not going to tell anybody what the challenge is, because then they'll be like, yeah, I'm not going there.
Right. No, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I love stuff like that. And I agree with you. It creates momentum. It creates action.
Absolutely.
And then it creates success.
Very good. And I appreciate the opportunity to share with your listeners. And you've got such a great following, and you do such great work yourself, Kimberly. Thank you so much.
Tom, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks for being here. I hope you'll follow up on that comeback plan and put some of Tom's wisdom into action to create the life you're dreaming of. Already doing well and living vibrantly? Join us in the Living the Good Life Facebook community and share your tips and ideas. We would love to learn from you. Check out the show notes for links. Hey, it's been my pleasure. Next week, we'll talk with an incredible award-winning filmmaker and author on facing fear. Until then, enjoy living the good life.